How can you make one of these emergency keychain whistles? Well, today I'm going to tell you how. I'm going to leave my microphone here for a good test. Well, hopefully you heard that. It is very loud, and sometimes it can be quite ear-piercing just doing it, you know, blowing it yourself. All the chickens are looking, they're wondering what's going on. Let's go make it. Okay, so I'm very weirdly situated here on the side of this little flowing stream, but what sort of thing are you looking for when you're trying to find the timber to make this whistle? Well, you're just looking for a simple stick, nice, straight, long stick. And obviously you don't need a big bit. However, I like to look for dead wood. And the dead wood is dry, you can use it straight away. And it's ultimately dead, so you're not killing off the tree anyway. So just take your saw, find a dead bit which has no leaves on it or anything, and just chop it off. Sometimes with dead wood you can even break it off. I'm now going to try that. Whoa. I think I need to get off this bank side, but I've got my stick, let's go. So not only do you need this nice long stick, you also need a thin stick. Something a bit like this, going from slightly larger to very small. And this will give you a variety of the hole size that you can have. Let's get in the workshop and make this. So, how do you actually go about making one now that you've got this long stick and this shorter stick? How do you make it? Well, first things first, you need to figure out how long you want your whistle. Now, my one, I've measured it, and my one is about 45 millimeters, or if you want that in centimeters, that is about 4.5 centimeters. Now, obviously it's good if you have something to clamp this in. You don't have to. You can just have something a bit like a bench hook or something like that just to place your thing on, or you can do it the old-fashioned way and just simply hang it off the side of the bench and then saw it off there. But to get a nice straight cut, I'm going to use my trusty bench hook. Now, I would suggest a fine-ish saw, and the overall diameter depends on whether you want to keep the bark on or if you want to take the bark off. Now, personally, I want to take the bark off this time, just to make it like my other one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a slightly larger stick. Now, the diameter of my one that I have now, which is made, is about 15 millimeters, which is 1.5 centimeters. So I'm going to pick something that's probably around about 2 centimeters thick, maybe just under, and then I can shave some off as I need. So I'm going to take this section right here. I'm not actually going to measure it because I don't really need to. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of advice. And that advice is to keep your stick long to start with. So I'm actually going to go ahead and keep mine quite fairly long. So there's my stick. Obviously, that's not going to be the overall width. or should I say length. Now pop your piece in your vise, preferably nice and low down, so you've got a bit of control. Now, you want to take a drill piece. Now, I like to use quite a large size drill piece. Now, I like to use a size in 8.0, which I'm guessing is 8 millimeters. So I like to use an 8 millimeter drill bit. And obviously, get yourself a drill. And just go ahead and make your hole. Now, how deep would I say to make your hole? Bearing in mind that the overall length of this little guy is probably about 45 millimeters, I would suggest making your hole roughly around about, let's have a look. I'd suggest making it about 35 millimeters, so leave about 10 mil at the end. That's what I would suggest to do. So I'm just going to go down as far as I think is good. Let you know how far that was. Okay, I went quite far down there that time. I have to have a bit of a longer one. So I went down mine about 37 millimeters, which is fine. But it's good to know how far you go down, because then you know how far down to cut it off. I'm going to cut mine off at 45 millimeters. And try and cut it off as straight as possible. So, there we go. So now I have my little section to work on, and the first thing I'm going to do is take off the bark. Now, this is not too hard. I like to use a carving knife, which I have here, and I like to just take off the bark nice and carefully. Now, if you've never used a knife before, or a carving knife, or you've never carved wood before, I would suggest that you don't do it towards yourself like I am. I would suggest you sort of do it away from yourself, because that way there's no way that you can cut yourself. But I just like to do it this way, because I feel as though I've got more control. So mine has got this sort of like mouldy effect now. It's got all different little colours, but I've kind of kept it that way because I like it. And that's just the way mine has gone. So pop your knife away, and now what you want to do is you want to make this part. You want to make this part. Now, I've kind of just judged this over the time of me making whistles. Now, I've made a few whistles, and you kind of just get to learn what sort of angle that needs to be. It's quite hard to explain, but if I was to say, I would say around about 75 degrees. Most people say do it 45. But I feel like that's quite a lot. So 75 degrees is about where I have it. Now that we've established the degrees, let me go ahead and show you. Don't leave much at the end, probably about 8 millimeters from the end. So 8 millimeters from the end. I'm just going to roughly mark it. I'm not doing anything specific. Place it in your vise again. Be careful, obviously, because it's got a hole in it, so you don't want to squeeze it too tight. It might just pop open on you. The straight cut down you want to do with a tenon saw if you got one. Or if not, any old saw will do. Just try and get it as straight as possible. And don't go too far down. You can always make it further, but you can't make it shallower. And I'm just gonna carefully take a little bit out at a time, just very small. Right now, if I blow in this, doesn't work. Now, why doesn't it work? Well, the reason why it's not working is because you've got to have a little bit inside. As you can see, there's like a little bit which is like cut in half almost. Now, that little bit is crucial. And that is why we picked up a little stick, because that's the bit that goes inside. Now, how long do you want this bit that goes inside? Well, you want it as long as you've made this front bit, this little bit here, about 8mm. Get your bench hook in and then take your stick and just cut a little section of about 8mm. Now, just to warn you that this section may take a few tries, especially if you've never made one of these before. So now that I've got this little section here and I've got my whistle, I want to see what the fit is like. It is quite, I mean, it's tight. It's tight, I can't get it out now. I think the next thing we've got to do is we've got to just take a little bit off. Now, just take a little bit off at a time. This is not quite half off. This is probably, I don't know, 1/4, something like that. So I'm just going to take my knife, put the small piece of wood sort of flat down, and just take a little bit off of it. There we go. It's nice and easy because the grain is going the same way, just like that. It is. Now, you go ahead and slide this piece, this little piece, into this piece, just like that. And then you just give it a little blow, making sure that it's all lining up. Oh, you can hear the sound. It's wanting to work. You've got to mess around with it. You've got to just keep putting it in. You've got to take a little bit off. You might have to recut another bit. You've got to keep just messing around with it until you get it. I'm going to quickly redo all the steps, but on a different piece of timber, because this piece is a little bit rotten and it's very hard to work with. So find something that is a little bit less rotten than this. It is so rotten. In fact, if I just go like this, look, it's broken. So I need to find something a little bit stronger. I'm just going to go outside. I'll quickly do all the previous steps and then I'll be back with you, because this bit is just a little too rotten. So finally, I've managed to make it to where it's got a very, very loud sound. Take a listen to this. Very loud. Now, have a little look. So I made the V. I've basically done exactly the same thing, just on a new piece of wood. Now, getting this in here took me, well, getting it in was okay, but getting it right took me so many tries. And that's what I tell you. Look, I've got all these little pieces here. I've got 3 little pieces here. And in the end, and I've got some more here, it took me a bunch of tries. But in the end, I used a bit of sandpaper. Instead of just chopping a bit off, I actually used a bit of sandpaper to just finally take a bit off, give it a try, see if I can make it work. And then I carried on doing that, take a little bit off, put it in, try again, move it around a bit, try it. If it doesn't make a sound, then carry on. And as soon as I got a little bit of sound, I knew, right, that is the right point. And then you just need to keep moving it about, trying it, moving it about, trying it, and you just got to keep doing that. Push it in a bit further, take it out a little bit more, and just you know, twist it this way a tiny little bit and see if it works, and eventually you'll get it. And as soon as you get it, whatever you do, do not move it, okay? You want to be able to blow on this thing as pretty much, not as hard as you can, but pretty hard, and for it to still work. So then the noise is ear piercing, that's what you need. Right, so once you get this, do not move anything. You want to get some very, very watery super glue. Don't mix water with super glue. You get thin super glue and thick super glue. Use the thin stuff. So I'm going to go quickly grab that, and then you just put a few drops on the end. Try not to get it, or don't get it in the hole, because if you block the hole, it won't work, and you'll have to start all over again. So just put it around the outside and just glue it into place. Okay, I'm pretty sure that'll be glued in there enough to sand it down. Now, give it a couple of minutes just to glue itself down, and once it's glued itself down, you can then go ahead and sand it down and sort of just do the finishing touches to it. Just be sanding the outside if you want to while that dries. So obviously be very careful not to move anything. Take your sandpaper and the end, which is sticking out a little bit, of your whistle, and you just want to sand it down in circular motions. Gently sand it, don't push too hard. Okay, and keep doing that until you've made it flat. So once you've sanded that down enough and you've got a nice smooth finish, the next thing to do is to go ahead and decide where you kind of want this. Now you can have it, you know, just sitting on a shelf like that, or you could have it on a keychain. And the best way to get this on a keychain, I've found, is that I've used one of those screw-in little round like eye things, or you could get a nail and bend it, and that's what I'm gonna do right now. Right, so I've got one of these microscopic panel pins. They are very small. I'm gonna try using one of these. So I've got to sharpen this end. You can use a file to do that, and then I've got to bend the whole thing over. Wish me luck. Then I'm just going to take this little pin hammer. I'm just going to take this, I'm going to try and find the center of it. Just about there. And then I'm just going to tap it. Trying not to blunten that end. And now I've got to try not to lose it. Whew. Nearly lost it. Then put the other end in there, nice and tight, bend it over, and there we've sort of made ourselves a little hook thing, sort of like where we can pound both of them in, and then we can put something in between there. Right. Very awkward to show you all this, because it's small and fiddly work, but you put this in your vise with the hole this side facing down, so you've got the back, line it up to how you want it, gently put it in there, not too tight, not you'll end up breaking it. Okay. Very gently put it in there, not too tight at all. And now take your little pin thing, take some jute twine or some kind of twine or something, and just create a nice little loop in one end, tie it nice and tight. So you place your loop and place your bit of jute twine looped through the bent piece of metal like that. So then the nail is through. Yeah, you can see what I mean. It's very hard to explain. So that when you pound that down on there, that jute twine will be hanging off of it. Right, pound your pin in very gently. Okay. Whew. Once you've done that, jute twine should be on. Lovely jubbly. And boom, you got your jute twine, your whistle, and then you can put a little bit of stain or varnish on it. I'm just going to put a little bit of this natural white oil. It's called white oil, and it's safe to put on chopping boards and things like that. So things that are going to go near your mouth, basically. And obviously this is going to go near my mouth. And it just gives it that nice little bit of sheen, just to look that one bit nicer. And this will soak in here. You don't have to worry about that. It'll soak in. Make sure to put enough on. Make sure to rub it in. And well, this is how it turned out. Look at that little bad boy. Boom. Straight on your keychain. Good to go. Let's take a listen. It is extremely loud and very effective when trying to get people's attention. Thanks so much for watching. Check out these two videos, which are going to be on the screen in just a second. And goodbye.